Imagine you are selling products in a specific product category and you want to push sales of the high price items. But you don't want to change the price. You want to change the message, the context around these products. How do you go about it? We will find out today. Be ready for my first rhyme in the pricing nuggets. When people don't have a clue, they look for a cue. And this pretty much means we are talking about price-quality inference. If customers cannot evaluate the quality of a product with certainty, they look for other indicators. And one indicator could be the price. That also explains why people expect that a bottle of wine at the price of $10 is much better than a bottle that costs just $1. If customers conclude from high prices that the perceived or expected quality is higher, what do we want to do if we want to sell high-priced products? Of course, we want to make the association between a high price and a high quality to be stronger and more likely to happen. How can we do that? Please allow me a bit of theory first. Consumers have a local identity and a global identity. So customers can perceive them as local, meaning they are faithful and respectful of local traditions, interested in local events, and identify with people in the local community. Or they perceive them as part of a global village. They are global citizens, favor globalization, and the lines between local and non-local people and events blur a bit. Why is this important for our case? You can make either part of the identity more salient, so they perceive rather as a local person or as a global person. And why does this matter? Consumers who perceive them as locals are more likely to perceive dissimilarities between objects and events. On the other hand, globals focus more on the similarities between things and are less prone to identify differences. For example, in perceived quality of things. So locals are more likely to perceive quality variances and globals are more likely to not perceive quality variances. Why is this important? If consumers perceive a large variance in the perceived quality, so quality actually varies a lot among different product or service options, they are more likely to make associations between price and perceived quality. In this train of thought, locals are more likely to make associations between price and perceived quality, and globals are less likely to make associations between price and perceived quality. Researchers ran a study in China and the US. And this is important because in general, the Chinese population has a more local identity, and in the US, they have a more global identity. This has to do with Chinese people have a greater likelihood to meet people from the same community. It means people, and the US are more likely to meet also other people than the people living in the US. The takeaway is that what happens now works in both parts of the population. So what the researchers did. In the China study, they intercepted people coming from a mall and they gave them one of two brochures. The first brochure advertised a Think Local movement and the other one a Think Global movement. Either brochure triggered a different part of your identity, either as a local or as a global. And what happens now? The researchers asked people to evaluate the quality of different shoes and caps that are to be introduced within the next month. And they run a market research study to identify the ideal pricing. So they showed them different shoes and different caps at different prices and asked them to evaluate the quality. And they found that the relationship between price and quality, expressed as a correlation coefficient, is much higher in the Think Local movement brochure case compared to the Think Global movement case. So the relationship between price and perceived quality increased, expressed as correlation coefficient, from 0.4 to 0.68. By the way, 1 means perfect correlation, so there's a 100% linear relationship between a difference in price and a difference in perceived quality. And as 0.68 is much closer to 1 than 0.4, the relationship between price and perceived quality is significantly increased. They ran the same study in the US. In this case, they only asked for the price of caps. And they found that the correlation of 0.02, which means there's technically no correlation, moved up to 0.5. And the stimulus that they presented to trigger the Think Local or Think Global movement was that the salesperson wear a different t-shirt, either reading Think Local or Think Global. What does it mean for us? If you make the local identity of your customers more salient, they are more likely to equate high-priced products with a higher quality. They are more likely to buy them. And you can do it by handing out the different brochure. You can make your salespeople wear different t-shirts, or you feature any kind of local image. Like in Germany, you show a German pretzel. What else can you do? In the current study, we saw that locals and globals have a different perception of the quality variance. Locals perceive a high variance, globals a lower variance, and that explains the strength of the price perceived quality associations. What you could do, you could directly impact the perceived quality variance. And what the researchers did in another study is the following. They changed the distribution of customer ratings between poor, good, and excellent. And they provided two different conditions, a divergent condition and a convergent condition. In the divergent condition, the ratings were very dissimilar, although the average evaluation is more or less the same between both. In the convergent condition, the ratings converged on the good rating. Remember, the average is the same. You see that poor and excellent has the same percentage, so that the overall average is the same. What happens now? As expected, you see that consumers with a local identity are more likely to perceive a quality difference between a low price and a high price item. This is what we saw also in the other study. Now we look into consumers whose global identity is more salient. And what happens here? If we move from the control situation without consumer ratings to a divergent condition where the variety of ratings vary a lot, consumers, although they have a global identity, all of a sudden associate a higher quality with a higher price. For consumers with a local identity, who already associated a higher price with a higher quality without showing the ratings, this difference does not change. So they still draw price-quality associations. And if the consumer ratings converge, so there is a low variety in consumer ratings and a lower perceived quality variance, consumers with a global identity and with a local identity don't draw any price-quality associations anymore, and there's no price-quality inference anymore. What does it mean for us? If you want to target expensive products and make customers associate a higher quality with expensive products, you should make the quality variance more salient. And you can do this by interviewing experts who express their expert opinion about the high variety and quality among different product or service options. Or you can make the convergence or divergence of customer ratings less or more salient. I hope our deep dive today into the price-quality inference effect gave you a spark of inspiration. And if you seek more inspiration on pricing and psychological pricing, join me at pricingnuggets.com. I see you there.